Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring the Nightfell core book. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review featuring this dark fantasy setting for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about the world of Yurman. I am going to give you a tour of the different places within this damned world. Let's talk about Yurman in the Lunar Age. The earthly world fell into darkness in the year 582 after Lagoran, and the evil that broke free in Zivanis reached every corner of Yurman, a day that came to be engraved in the memory of all peoples and was forever known as the Last Sun, the first day of the Lunar Age. In the following decades, the world has radically changed. Many races died out in the chaos of the early days of darkness. Many overground cities fell, and the world below was purged of its inhabitants and overrun by abominations. The Lunar Age of Yurman is now in its 115th year, and only among the Anireth and the Rizadrin, the most long-lived races, some still live who remember the world as it was before, but not for long. The use of magic has radically changed throughout the years. In the Lunar Age, the sources of arcane power are hopelessly led astray by darkness, and the employment of spells is a dangerous practice. Harnessing the magic weave of reality has become harder due to the merging of the dark mirror with the material plane that made the immanent powers of existence highly unstable. The arcane balance studied by magic users since the dawn of time has nearly vanished, and both sorcerous and supernatural powers can easily consume the soul of the practitioner. Days in Yurman are swallowed in an endless night, for the sun is dead and the otherworldly veil separating the dark mirror has vanished. Still, the people of Yurman found a way to keep track of time. Nights are frigid and sombre, yet the moon illuminates them. Even if scholars still debate whether the moon mirrors the light of other celestial bodies or shines on its own, the lunar cult endorsed the second theory, for Mirithlen merged with the pale Aster and ascended to godhood. Days are far gloomier than nights, for there is no light in the sky, save the faint one coming from cold and aloof stars. Decades of darkness and death drew the material plane closer to the dark mirror from a morphological and climactic perspective. The sun no longer warms beaches. Mountains and valleys and green plains are infrequent. Most woods died or became spectral, cloaked by mist and silence. The presence of the last primes is the only thing that still grants some life, which allows cultivation of only the most resistant plants and the persistence of some woods and meadows. Eternal winter laid on the world and many areas are harsh, wind-swept and covered in snow. The fauna is also affected by the sudden climate change, and beasts are ravenous and distrustful. Yurman is a very vast world, and many lands stand unexplored after thousands of years. The most relevant events, however, have always happened next to the huge province of Thor, the Thorinthian Empire, the center of civilization. In the aftermath of the Last Sun, darkness has turned life in the material plane so harsh that cities and wild lands are but a wreck of what they once were. Frost blankets what was once a lively and civilized land. Survivors are holed up in a few defendable outposts, such as the ruins of old cities or villages secluded from the world. In the Lunar Age, what once were joyous towns are now silent wastelands of memories, forgotten places where the night is swarming with the spirits of the damned, lingering in their houses where they once lived. Then we have the Wraith Coast, a vast inner sea that borders the entire province of Thor and divides it from the abandoned lands of Sarnium. Thick fog and wailing of drowned sailors await the few reckless enough to sail these accursed waters. The name commonly given to the lands below the surface and the underground kingdoms is the world below. It is the last place whence the subterranean races like the Rizadrin fled, forever surrendering their homes. It is one of the most dangerous places on Yurman, for the dark mirror let its horrors loose there first, and moonlight never shines on it. The world below is as vast as the world above, and its tunnels crawl under all of Yurman. Let's talk about the Hollow Isles. In the far northeast, the mists of the Hollow Sea hide a chain of cold islands, extremely ill-suited for life. These mysterious isles were thought to be the native abode of the first great dragons, for the only buildings on it are altars and temples to the cult of the serpent. Albeit no civilization ever settled here, and the dragon worshippers are thought to have disappeared. Then we have the Forgotten East. In the easternmost region of the known lands, ancient temples amidst the mountains lie, standing out of clouds and jagged rocks. What once was a sacred place to the Veronzin, who often pilgrimaged to those peaks, is now a solitary and forgotten region of hazardous climbs, where snow took the place of grass and old woods have gone bare. Most trails are impassable, so the mountain chain at the end of the continent is not easily crossed. Then we have the Alper Highlands, the northern region of Yurman, a compound of icy peaks and inhospitable dales. Here, lunar age winter is frigid as ever, and if nights are dreary, days are drearier. Harsh even in the gentler ages, this area made the Alpern the hardest of peoples, and was home to giants and semi-divine creatures unknown to most. Then we have the White Plateau, a once lovely rural area turned into an eerie tundra. Frozen remains of livestock and ravaged farmsteads covered in a silent opaque dew are the only record of past life. Ironically enough, even though the White Plateau is not the coldest place in Alper, it is the most desolate. Then we have Inkelch Valley. This valley is the last known location before the impassable mountain range dividing Alper from the mysterious northern lands known as Asvizard Realm to the Alperns. Just as in the Forgotten East, landslides and earthquakes have erased what trails or caves could take travelers beyond. The few Alperns that still reside there are stubbornly tied to local tradition and mistrust the outside world. Then we have the Northern Lookout, the last stronghold in the region. The lookout dominates the gorges of Alper, and its tower fires can be seen from miles away, a beacon for soldiers and hunters to find their way to safety. The construction is stalwart and stern, and large enough to harbor the waves of refugees that never seem to cease. As welcoming as a fortress in a dying world can be, the native Alperns of this lookout take in Anireth, Krampus, and Grey Folk. This underground town is the only place where the Livar do not feel like outcasts and can feel free to stay and take a rest. Then we have the Lake of Mounts. North of the known lands there is a frozen lake so large it was thought to be a sea. On its shores the Alperns who resided in nearby villages buried their dead. These hallowed grounds are covered in burial mounds, altars, and other places of worship where forefathers, great heroes, and influential leaders were once remembered. Now, these shores are just another abode for enraged wraiths. Though the small village of Dark Mist still resists and welcomes Garnar refugees to its hearth, few travelers dare to visit. And some of the other villages surrounding the lake, abandoned long ago, are extremely dangerous. Then we have Thor Province. Located in the center of the known world, this vast region harbors some of the most glorious ruins of the old First Men's Empire. The blight that defiled the world sparked from its capital, Zivanis, making this area the most corrupt in all of Yurman, together with the world below. Then we have the Wailing Mire. Dark tales of sorcery and ghosts surrounded this misty bog long before the endless darkness was laid upon the world. The dark morass hidden amidst the misty woods is a place for perdition, and those who wander do not come back, sleeping forever in the shadow of the mountains bordering the Alper Highlands. Old trees, rooted in filth, whisper of madness alongside the crones reciting their litanies. Next we have the ruins of Sivanis. Above the sunken halls of Thorinthian lie the ruins of the second capital of the Anireth, whose high towers are now nothing but debris, for everything began and ended there. Nothing moves amidst the archways and the white paved alleys, save for the few survivors, corrupted sons of the first possessed. Alone in the devastation, the statue of Mirithlen stands untouched, peerless in her majesty, utmost symbol of hope at the center of extreme desperation. Then we have Deep Thurinthian, the very halls of ancient Thurinthian, where evil first came into the world on account of man's search for what was lost. The splendor of the earliest empire can still be admired as it was, suspended in time and darkness. The Archmeister himself rules over the ruins and the outcasts and unholy sacrament cultists that have chosen this place as their home. In the unnatural crevice opened in the council hall lies the portal to Enferon. Then we have Rinalta's remnants, once a wealthy town on the shores of the Great Lake, renowned for its strategic position for commerce and craftsmanship across all of the Anireth's First Kingdom, only eclipsed by Thurinthian's greater lavishness and arrogance. The same schism that cast the capital underground buried Rinalta at the bottom of the lake, whose hazy waters sometimes reveal domes and spires as a testimony of the treasures waiting in drowned estates. Then we have the Morn Wastes. The expanse surrounding Sivanis were the first to be ravaged by the Dark Mirror leaks, so the devastation and corruption they still suffer come as little surprise. The most deformed creatures in all of Yurman creep amidst the ruins, ever trying to drag the living into the shadows where unspeakable horrors await. Then we have the Old Way. In ancient times, when men traded goods and culture fruitfully with the Veronzin, a large route connected Thurinthian and Aresia, capital of the Satyrs. When Thurinthian sank and Sivanis took its place, the route kept its function, although worn out by the sands of time and turned into a silent, melancholic landscape. Though it is far from safe, the wide road still is the best alternative to cross the province and get to the southeastern regions of the known lands. Halfway between these ruined cities stands Venistad, the last Anireth outpost in Thur and last safe haven for miles. Then we have Lost Aresia. The once thriving kingdom of the Voronzin Satyrs is now a dead flatland of silent pastures, putrid forests scattered with the ruins of stone temples and ritualistic megaliths. We have the grassland of the ancients, named for the colossal olive trees said to be physical manifestations of primes connected to nature. Amidst the bushes and the fields stand monuments dating back to the empire of the first men, and druidic monoliths raised by the Ezre when they claimed this land as their own. Then we have Old Civis. This distinctive town is the only Ezra safe haven in the whole region. Built around one of the great olive trees of the grasslands, it is the center of Radra's power. Its white lime walls and stone roofs mix with straw huts circling the roots of the great tree sanctuary. The outpost is well defended and, thanks to the perseverance of the apostates, is the only place where the power of the primes persists. Then we have Sila Woods, an extensive area of dead trees littered with the bones of satyrs who rise to protect it from creatures of the endless night. It was once the safest path into the east, but in the lunar age, it is a place for wrath and doom. Then we have the ravines of the Encaged. In the eastern side of the Lost Aresia are hills and plateaus, crossed by gorges and crevices so deep that moonlight barely reaches into them. The small village of Gloomvale holds onto the very rock of one of such ravines, mainly sustaining itself on hunting and trading with the outpost of the Mark. Despite its gloomy appearance, the village carved in stone is highly defensible, and sometimes its inhabitants descend into the lower mists with the aid of rudimentary lifts to drive the vicious creatures of the depths away. Every mountain in Yurman hides entrances to ancient Rizadrin cities, but most are in this area. Then we have the Eastern Mark, the land Anireth colonized last, led by the warlord Erven, forefather of the Grey Folk. The Mark is the region nearest to the Forgotten East, and is walked to the west by the Elder Peaks, above which one can admire the vastity of the area. In the Lunar Age, it is a place filled with perils, and popular legends now turned into vivid nightmares, threatening the refugees. In the midst of its plains are the ruins of all county seats, such as Arveron, now known as Grimstrider Haven. Then we have the Owl Rock. It is a small village dating back to 49 before Lagoran, near the roots of the southern side of the Elder Peaks. It was built and manned by the Anireth soldiers that conquered the area and eventually blended with the Grey Folk. After the cataclysm, its denizens were slain or driven away by the undead, until the Rizadrin emerged from the world below and restored it as a safe outpost and made it the founding site of the newborn religion known as the Lunar Cult. The village harbors several different ethnicities despite its diminutive size and is protected against the threats of the outside world. Then we have Ervenrun. Known as the White Town, this forlorn outpost, once forbidden to common people, was the fortress of Erven the Mighty, forefather of the Grey Folk. His relics were once kept here, along with his body, becoming a destination for pilgrims who believed he would lend them his strength. Also, tradition demanded regents had to pay homage on the day of their election. All of this went on until the advent of the Lunar Age, when it became a fortified citadel on the heights and houses numerous survivors. The White Town leans against the cliffs and its many layers end in the underground, where the Anireth enclaves dwell and the outcasts take shelter. Still, the catacombs are considered to be hallowed grounds, where revenants from another time guard the heroes' remains in their regal crypts. There's also the Forest of Stregi, where the lost empire of the First Men borders the Mark, and old wood of dead trees stretches for leagues. It is named after legends of old primal spirits connected to Enferun since before the cataclysm. Amongst the spirits and imps infesting it, the Stregi are the most numerous and dangerous, luring adventurers to their doom. Then we have the marshes of the Hollow Sea. Once thriving and fertile, it is now among the vastest and ghastliest marshes on the continent, where ruins of rural buildings can still be found amid the willows. An odd atmosphere of bubbling puddles, where unknown creatures make unsettling noises, and the air is so damp that it is hard to breathe. Some old trails leading to the sea still exist, but straying from those can instead lead to drowning. Then we have the King Post. In the easternmost mountain crossing, in the heights that border the Forgotten East, stands a crooked stronghold, perpetually covered in snow. The cataclysm secluded it from the rest of the world, and the prisoners, soldiers, and regents inside it were abandoned to an unknown fate, for none have since reached its high perch. Then we have the ruins of Penumbra. Amidst the middle flatlands, next to the vast village, wayfarers can see buildings in the fog, wrecked by a war dating back to the first years of the Lunar Age. These ruins are what is left of Penumbra, as erased from the lands as it is from memory and maps. Then we have Hislith's Spear. This mountain town is named for its founder and benefactor, Hislith, Erven's daughter, great huntress of the Grey Folk. For centuries, it has been a strategic vanguard for its people, but now all that remains are one tower and some ruined homes on a remote pinnacle. There is no reason to venture into these ruins, since there are rumors of ghosts and curses wandering about. Next we have Sarnium. In the deep south of the known lands, a scorching rocky desert stretches to the unexplored horizon, the distant lands that gave birth to the people of Ishdrim. It is now completely abandoned, sombre yet sublime, as the moonlight tinges the cold desert plains in silver. Crossing the Sea of Wraiths to Sarnium is a quest for the most fearless, or the most covetous, as both wonderful riches and deadly horrors are said to lie beneath the sands. Then we have Kerados Isles, an island chain off the northern edge of Sarnium's shores, whose largest island is in fact a dormant volcano. These lands were given by the first men to the Isdrim as a token for peace. The town of Catan stands out of the black rocks, ruined by the passing of time and by the evil that transformed Yurman. It is said to be the birthing place of many myths and forbidden mystical practices, such as a branch of the cult of the serpent that worshipped an ancient dragon that was one with the Black Mountain since before coming of the first men. Then we have Mag Safar. Sarnium encompassed several wealthy cities of opulent palaces, well-supplied markets, and major ports. The most splendid among them was Mag Safar, the Isdrim capital and their cultural and religious core. It is one of the few standing capitals of the known lands, looming over the coast as both a beautiful and dreadful sight for sailors in the Sea of Wraith. Legends are told about the magnificence and lavishness of the city, and many amongst the Ishdrim try to reclaim it from the solitude of the night. Then we have the fiery lowlands. The largest desert in Yurman has lost its fiery red and golden hue to the silver of moonlight and to the darkness of sunless days. Only the locals knew how to navigate across its dunes and rocky hills, and all others avoided it. Then we have the Temple of the Sands. A sandstone colonnade lies in the desolate crests, a place of worship where ancient Ishdrim kings went alone to commune with the sun god. And this concludes this part of the review. As you can see, this world is huge. Every single one of those places could serve to house an entire campaign. Maybe to add some variety, you could have the adventures happening in different adjacent places, or perhaps into far-off lands. Nonetheless, each of these sites, each of these zones and areas and decadent kingdoms are just waiting for adventurers to explore their sunless vaults. Thank you for watching this part of the review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. In the next part, we are going to talk about the type of adventurers that you can create for this dark fantasy setting. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending drive-thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you and see you later.